The turmoil in Venezuela has increased after trucks carrying US aid amassed on the country's borders with Colombia and Brazil. That sparked severe clashes at checkpoints between opposition supporters and those loyal to President Nicolas Maduro. Well, following those clashes, Venezuela's self-proclaimed leader, Juan Guaido, did urge the world to consider all options to liberate the people of Venezuela. He disputes the legitimacy of President Maduro, claiming the last elections were rigged. Guaido also announced his plans to meet with the US Vice President on Monday to discuss the situation. Well, the President, Nicolas Maduro, meanwhile, has expressed serious concern about Washington's real intentions in sending aid. He maintains he is the rightful president of Venezuela, a post he's been in since 2013, and accuses Guaido of violating the constitution. He also says, too, that Guaido is attempting to stage a coup, aided and abetted by the US. The Venezuelan foreign minister also lambasted the US today, accusing Secretary of State Mike Pompeo of fabricating reasons to start a war against Caracas. Meanwhile, Washington says it's preparing more sanctions against Venezuela.
Venezuela's military has a choice: embrace democracy, protect civilians and allow in humanitarian aid, or face even more sanctions and isolation.
The US will take action against those who oppose the peaceful restoration of democracy in Venezuela. Now is the time to act in support of the needs of the desperate Venezuelan people.
Meanwhile, thousands of people have been showing their support for President Maduro. Speaking at a rally on Saturday, he called on Venezuelans to take to the streets and defend the country's independence, and he denounced Guaido as an American puppet.
I swear to formally assume the duties of the national executive as President of Venezuela.
The United States proudly recognized National Assembly President Juan Guaido as the interim president of Venezuela.
We recognize and express our full support for the interim presidency of Venezuela, assumed by the President of the National Assembly, Juan Guaido.
It is clear that Nicolas Maduro is not the legitimate leader of Venezuela. So the United Kingdom believes that Juan Guaido is the right person to take Venezuela forward.
Son ilegales, unilaterales, inmorales, criminales, harm of Venezuela. Donald Trump, hands of Venezuela.
We seek a peaceful transition of power, but all options are open.
Well, here at the Tienditas bridge crossing, right on the Colombian-Venezuelan border, I'm on the Colombia side. You can see Venezuela behind me. There was a lot of momentum here this morning to get these so-called humanitarian aid trucks through. Juan Guaido made an appearance this morning. He climbed up on one of the trucks, addressed the crowd, then he made a statement standing alongside his allies and the president of Chile and the president of Paraguay. The other bridge crossings in the area have seen violent clashes, indeed. Now, one humanitarian aid truck was reportedly even set on fire. At one point, protesters uprooted a tree trunk and used it actually as a battering ram against Venezuelan police vehicle. In another instance, protesters from both sides were throwing rocks at one another. Both Nicolas Maduro and Juan Guaido have called for protests from their respective supporters. There was an opposition protest near Caracas where protesters surrounded an Air Force base. Now, Chile and Brazil have said that the so-called humanitarian aid has actually entered Venezuela at some of the crossing points, but that's certainly not the case here, as the humanitarian, these trucks are still sitting on the Colombian side of the border, just a few hundred meters ahead of me. The Bolivian president, Evo Morales, has denounced this and said it's a Trojan horse that the U.S., he accused the U.S. of attempting to smuggle weapons under the cover of humanitarian aid, and considering the involvement of the State Department's special envoy to Venezuela, Elliot Abrams, who did just exactly that back in the 1980s under the Reagan administration, it seems to be a legitimate concern. Now, the latest is Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, has ordered he has cut all ties with Colombia. So a total diplomatic rupture, which is certainly a disturbing development. But it's all quiet here at Tienditas Bridge. But the other crossings, there are clashes going on.
That was Dan Cohen reporting there. Well, more than 300 people have reportedly been injured in the clashes at Venezuela's borders with Colombia and Brazil. Meanwhile, on Saturday, several members of Venezuela's National Guard deserted their posts at the border and tried to flee to Colombia. We're about to show you the moment that it did try to ram their vehicle through a security barrier. A word of warning, though, you might find the video disturbing. Well, another controversy is also happening at the Venezuela-Colombia border. The humanitarian aid group, the Red Cross, has warned that people are falsely advertising themselves as workers for the organisation and attempting to cross into Venezuela. It expressed concern that these actions might risk the impartiality of the organisation's work. Now, the crisis in Venezuela has caused global shockwaves. According to the No War on Venezuela movement, there are now 150 campaigns worldwide against US interference in the country. We heard from an anti-war activist who was at a protest in New York.
This was a day for the people of the world, the grassroots movement, to make their voice heard against another U.S. war, a war that's for oil, that's for imperialist domination, and has nothing to do with humanitarian aid. There's no war that the U.S. has ever fought that has been for a humanitarian purpose. It will raise a firestorm within Latin America. That is absolutely clear. Destruction of the economy of Venezuela. This is the crime that the U.S. is committing. They're saying that there's a chaos and a U.S. intervention is needed, but who is causing the economic destabilization in Venezuela? It's a seizing of Venezuela's own funds and the imposition of sanctions and the blocking of trade that the U.S. is orchestrating. The opposition, of course, realizes that they have a big media forum, and they're going to make all kinds of claims. But they are the ones who are accepting shipments of arms that will lead to many more deaths. And they are the ones who are creating the crisis on the border. demanding that these trucks get through. This is the wealthiest people in Venezuela who could well provide for other people if they so chose. Instead, they want this phony cover to get rid of the elected government.
Well, as earlier mentioned, the leader of the opposition, Juan Guaido, is planning to meet with senior US officials on Monday. That as tensions intensify along Venezuela's borders with Brazil and Colombia. And of course, we'll keep you updated on any further developments.